In tonight's video, I'm going to be making Steak Diane. It's a classic mid-century dish, typically served at restaurants and was usually or often made tableside. The maitre d' would come out and cook your steak and make the sauce right there at the table. We're going to do it a little bit differently. It's a recipe that'll take a little bit more time than that approach, but it's a good method to make sure this comes out very, very good. I've watched probably every Steak Diane video on YouTube. I'm only a little bit obsessed. But I'm going to be making the version that Chef Billy Parisi on YouTube does. And they're all pretty similar. You get a cream sauce, probably a little mustard, some beef stock, and cognac. Mostly they include mushrooms these days. But I really like Chef Parisi's approach. It's a very straightforward way to do it that works really well. I actually recommend his content in general for cooking, because I think he usually presents things in a very clear way and stuff that works really well. So I'm going to take his approach. Guga Foods has another great video on Steak Diane. But that's the one that I'm going to lean into tonight. The one thing about Steak Diane is it has a lot of ingredients. It's a little bit of a variety of stuff. And it is super important that you have everything ready to go, because it does cook very quickly. And there really isn't a chance to go, get your mustard out and measure that out. I'll stir fry in that sense. So you can see we have mushrooms and parsley, lemon, shallot, garlic, chives, some butter, mustard, some Worcestershire sauce, some cream. In this case, I'm just using half and half, which is okay. If you can use the cream, go for it. Some beef stock, which I normally like to use a pre-prepared because I never really get around to making it, but I made from bouillon tonight, so that's okay. And then we have our beef. I have 2 nice filet mignon medallions, around a pound. We'll prepare that shortly. The recipe that I'm working off of calls for 2 pounds of the beef. I'm going to go ahead and make the sauce recipe according to those measurements. So it'll be more sauce than I need for the amount of beef that I have. I'm going to be happy to have that leftover sauce. I think I may try it with chicken. Never done that before, but chicken and a creamy mushroom sauce, it's a pretty classic type of thing. So for those leftovers, I may do that. So anyway, I think the proportions are maybe a little bit easier to work with on the full recipe as part of that. So that's what we'll do. But note, if you were making this, you would want more beef to match the full recipe. So I'm going to start prep in just a second, but you'll note as we go through, but I've already collected a large number of measuring items, as well as some different bowls to hold all of my ingredients. And yes, it's a lot of dishes, but it's just going to make life a lot easier when we're preparing this, to have everything ready to go and at hand. So let's get going. So let's start by getting these mushrooms out of our way here. We'll do those first. Gonna move my herbs. Some wonderful chives that will finish off the dish. And some garlic. Do that shortly. So to begin with, let's just slice these mushrooms. Gonna kind of take off the end of the stem here. They look a little rough, and it'll let me set those mushrooms flat for slicing. Always want a flat edge. I experienced a rather grievous wound when I didn't do that one time with Brussels sprouts, so it is a real thing to make sure you're not cutting something round. It's so easy for the knife to slip, and we don't want that, so just get these trimmed up. I have 10 of these. Okay. And then, like I said, let's just slice these up. I absolutely love mushrooms. Part of why I like this dish. All right. Getting those sliced up. And the last one here. Okay. That's all there is to it. Let's put these in our bowl to set aside and be ready. Okay. All right, next up, let's do our garlic. Smash those a bit so we can slip the peel off here. All right, and then we'll just mince that up. pretty good. Just rocking that knife through there to get that minced up. I'll grab my bowl here. Okay, and then to accompany that, we're going to saute it at the same time as the shallot. So I'm just going to go ahead and combine those. And we really only need half of the shallot here. So set this one aside, and we're just going to mince like we did with the garlic. All right, there is our shallots and garlic, and that can be set aside. All right, next let's go ahead and chop some chives. These will finish the dish. My chives for garnish. Nice and springy chives. Want to fly everywhere. Okay, some chives. Then next, let's grab some of this wonderful fresh parsley. Smells very good. And we're just going to chop this up. And we want about 2 tablespoons roughly, so that seems pretty good. And again, I'm going to stash this in a bowl until we're ready for it. Okay, we are getting there on our prep. Now that we have our parsley ready to go. Now what I want to do is crack open this lemon. I've got a little measuring container here. We want 1.5 teaspoons of lemon juice. So I'm just gonna squeeze it into my little measuring vessel here. And 1.5 teaspoons is basically a half tablespoon, so that's what I'm going with here. I use these all the time. They are super handy. If you don't have these, so good for smaller measurements of liquids and stuff, and super easy to use. So lemon juice ready to go. All right. We're going to need some mustard, and we want 2 teaspoons. So let's grab our teaspoon and our Dijon mustard, and we'll measure 2 teaspoons worth. Okay. We've got our mustard now. Set this aside, and we'll add that to our stack of ingredients. Getting close here. Now we need our Worcestershire sauce. I am using a vegetarian one. Just for some reasons. All we need is 1 tablespoon of that, and I will have that handy and ready to go. Okay, up next, the 1/3 cup measuring cup, making sure that it gets some use. And we're going to do 1/3 of a cup of cream. All right, that is that. Okay, and basically the last thing before we go cook, in terms of ingredient prep, is we need 1/4 cup of cognac, 2 ounces, again turning to my little measuring cup, and I'm going to be using a brandy. Cognac is a subset of brandy, the same way that champagne is for sparkling wine. So you can run what you brung, as we like to say. In this case, I happen to have this brandy on hand. So 2 ounces, 1/4 cup. And I will say I have made this both ways, and I actually prefer it with a proper cognac. This brandy does work, though. It's still going to be super, super delicious. But now that we have that ready, and you'll remember we have 1.5 cups of beef stock ready to go. That completes all of the ingredient prep. So let's tackle the beef next. But first, a little beverage. All right, let's get a beverage prepared for the chef. And since Steak Diane is very mid-century, I'm going to go with a martini. Maybe I'll make it a little bit differently than some of you might be accustomed to. If you watch the channel, you know that I usually go with the brown liquors like whiskey or rum, but I'm not in a committed relationship with them, so I'm going to mix it up a little bit, and I think it fits the theme. I am not a fan of olives, fun fact. So I'm going to be using a lemon twist, but that actually kind of suits this, as we're going to go with a more old-fashioned approach to the martini. So I've got some Bombay Sapphire gin and some dry vermouth, and we have some orange bitters as well. Going to be using a mixing glass. I'll stir this drink. Give myself just a little space here. Okay. I am going to start with the gin. I've got a 1.5 ounce jigger, and we're going to go with 1.5 ounces of this Bombay Sapphire gin. Cracking a fresh bottle here. Okay, and that goes into our mixing glass. Then I'll grab my 1/2 ounce here of dry vermouth. And we'll pour out a 1/2 ounce there. this approach, it's definitely more of a wet martini than modern tastes might go for, where there's been less and less vermouth over time. I'm going with this more old school approach. I would go more like 5-2 in ratio for something a little bit more modern. I think there's a big gulf between a glass of cold gin and a proper martini, and the vermouth is part of it. I have acquired the taste of sweet vermouth more over time, but still don't love dry vermouth, but it really is a magical combination in this cocktail and what has made it such a classic over the years. So you definitely want some in there. And to cap it off, another ingredient that doesn't really appear in most modern forms of the martini, but it would be fairly classic to add a dash of orange bitters. And such a big thing in cooking, aroma, and same with making drinks, that orange note coming off those bitters just immediately came up out of the glass. It's really very wonderful. So now we've got all that we need from the spirits perspective. So let's get some ice in this glass. All right, so we've got some ice. We want to chill and dilute. So we're going to stir this with our spirits. Okay, for a drink like this that's all spirits, you really want that dilution to help mellow things out, blend everything together. I've got my glass here. And let's grab our strainer. Slip that on. And we can pour our martini. Okay. And we do want some garnish, so to finish that off, we're going to take some lemon and let's peel off a nice strip here. Okay, and have my cutting board right here. That's a little bit of a ragged strip, so I'm just going to do a quick trim. Just to make this look nice. With that nice clean strip of peel. And let's get some oil out of there onto the drink. nice run around the rim here for all that wonderful fragrance. And we will garnish our martini. All right, time to enjoy and get to cooking. Cheers. All right, I've swapped out my cutting board to prepare this beef. Some very nice filet mignon. You could use a variety of cuts, really pretty much anything that you wanted to. This is nice and tender and will go great with that rich, creamy sauce. So that's what I'm going to go with tonight. And what we're going to do is we're just going to slice these in half to get some smaller pieces. There we go. And same for my other one. Okay. And then what I'm going to do, this is definitely not a place to like pound this out. Just going to press down to get that a little flatter. It's going to cook very quickly. That's all we've got to do is just press these out a little bit. Just press. And the last one, just going to take my knife and press. That's all we need. Just a little bit of a press. Alright, and then what we're going to do is sprinkle on some salt. And hit the other side with salt as well. Just a nice bit on there. Really want to get that seasoning on the beef. And I'm just going to clean my hands to then do the pepper. Alright, so I have grabbed my pair of tongs. These have literally changed my life. Let's season with some cracked black pepper. And then I can use my tongs to press that in, and then I can flip this. The nice thing about the tongs is I don't have to keep touching the meat anymore. It's gonna do my dirty work for me. And we'll once again crack black pepper on this side as well. Perfect. So I can just lightly press that in so it adheres. And then we will be ready to cook. So let's get going on that. Alright, we are ready to do this. Got my skillet. This is all I need. I'll go ahead and get that heating. And we're gonna add some olive oil to that skillet. We'll want to get that nice and hot. We're going to sear these steaks very briefly. 2 minutes on one side and another minute on the other. They get heated in the sauce at the end, so I'll get some extra heat pushed into them then. We want to not take them too far at the beginning. Alright, so our oil is hot. Let's get these steaks going. Alright, I've got a very nice sizzle going. One of the things I like about Chef Parisi is that he's very willing to move the steaks around. There's some gospel about not touching them, but it does help them brown more evenly, and you're not hurting it. Have just a slight tilt in the stove. I'll try to correct. You see some of that oil is sliding away. Alright, so that's been about 2 minutes. So I'm going to flip these. Hey, look at that wonderful crust. And we're doing about a minute on this side. You see they're not perfectly evenly browned. And we're serving them in a sauce. We don't want to overcook them since they're so thin. So we do have some nice caramelization, but it's okay that we don't have it all over. Alright, so that's been about a minute, so let's take those off. And I'm going to take my pan off the heat for just a second while I deal with these. It's getting pretty toasty. Now the mushrooms are going to go right into this pan. And we'll get those browning. So this is where I think this recipe is very savvy, because it separates the cooking of the mushrooms from like the shallots and garlic, which, since they're finely minced, cook very quickly. And this lets you cook the mushrooms to get nicely browned, and then we'll do that step. And I don't want to get the bottom of the pan too brown, so lifting it off the heat for a second. Still getting used to the stove. We're going to go for a few minutes here. I want to see them get nicely browned. These are some particularly squeaky mushrooms. Alright, so this is what we want to see. Seeing those mushrooms brown up. Okay, those are getting pretty good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to move them off to the side. So I can cook my shallots and garlic. Leave this off the heat for just a second. I'm going to grab my butter. And we're going to add that. And then the shallots and garlic. And then we'll combine them all. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, that's going. Shallot and garlic. We don't have to cook these very long. Already super fragrant. So good. That's really probably all that we're going to need. So we're still going here. Alright, so let's mix those in with our mushrooms. Get those going. And here's where the fun happens. I'm going to take that brandy, and it is going into the pan. off the heat, and we are going to light it on fire. Some nice flambe action. The dog is getting quite suspicious. Okay, so that's cooked off. That helps us deglaze the bottom of that pan. So I didn't want to get it too hot and burn that. It's going to be so delicious, soaking up all that fond. Alright, and then the beef stock. Just give that a little stir to incorporate. Alright, and we now want to reduce this by about half. I'm going to go ahead and put a little more heat back in so we can get that boiling and reducing. This is why you want to have everything ready, because there's a lot going on, a lot of different stuff to add. So that preparation really pays off. Be prepared, as the Boy Scouts would say. It's a good thing to do. Smells really good. Get the notes from that brandy, mushrooms, garlic, so much good stuff. Alright, so we're just going to let that go for a minute. Alright, let's give this a stir. Don't have to do much. That steam coming off there, concentrating the flavors a bit. And as soon as this reduces by half, we'll be adding the cream, Worcestershire, mustard, parsley, lemon juice. So all the good stuff we've gotten ready. Alright, give that just a moment. Just a little bit more. Alright, I think we're getting there. Alright, I'm going to turn down my heat a bit. I'm going to add my cream. Get that incorporated. And Worcestershire. And our mustard. Okay. Take that down a notch. Just stir to incorporate that mustard into the sauce. There we go. Good stuff here. And our parsley. Go ahead and get that in there. Some great color. And my lemon juice. That is such a difference maker in a creamy sauce like this. That bit of acid really brightens up the rich sauce. Makes it all come together so well. Okay, sauce seems pretty good. Let me it's tasting very good. But I want just a touch more pepper in there. Mix that up. And time to get those steaks back in. And there's a lot of juice on this plate. Let's not waste that. Go right into that sauce. Okay. Just do a little bit of stir to help that incorporate. And these won't be in here long. Let's just get them coated, warmed up. Get a nice finish in our delicious sauce here. So yeah, it's well worth the effort. None of it is too hard, just gotta get everything ready to go so we can get this sauce built here at the end. Alright, so this should be ready to go. So let's go ahead and serve some up. Alright, let's serve up our Steak Diane. Since we're professionals, we'll do a little touch up on the plate. And then let's spoon over some sauce. Touch up. So there we have Steak Diane and a classic martini. I hope you enjoy.